Okay, I'm going to be demonstrating a 5-loop square braid made with loop braiding, finger-held loop braiding, also known as finger loop braiding. And I have here already set up a bundle, a loop bundle of 5 loops, just 5 strands that I cut about the same length, tied all together at one end with a knot, an overhand knot. These are loops. And now I'm going to attach them to a firm fixed object. I'm showing this way because I think it's very easy and simple. I cut a header cord, this bright orange piece of string, and I've laid it like that underneath. I'm going to make a lark's head knot. It's like a lasso around my loop bundle. So I'm putting it through like that and tightening. I'm going to move this up to the just below the overhand knot that I made. So now this is strung up just as if you were going to hang somebody, and I am going to hang it. I'm going to tie a little knot in it, and I used to tie this around a kitchen chair. I would have a longer string. You can tie it around anything, a tree, but I'm going to hang it over a C-clamp. So I'm just going to make a little slip knot here and hang it over that. It's nice to have a little length in between the attachment and the actual braid. It makes it easier to braid. So now I'm hanging it over my C-clamp, and I'm going to pick up the ends of my loops, and now I'm going to put one loop per finger on several fingers. I'm going to put them on 3 fingers of my left hand. I think I'm going to put the gray there, and 2 fingers of my right hand, the purple one here. Like so. I thought I was going to say something important here, and I forgot what it was. You load the loops from the index finger down, 3 loops on one hand, 2 on the other. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Braiding, this form of braiding is ambidextrous. Right-handers and left-handers will do the same exact thing on both sides of the braid. I do sort of reflexively, since I'm right-handed, do the first move of the braid with my right hand, so you might want to switch that if you're left-handed and start this way and have your first move be with your left ring finger, but it doesn't really matter. You will do the exact same thing in turn, whether you're left or right-handed. So I have 5 loops on 5 fingers, and ignoring my little fingers, and thumbs, which don't get involved in this braid, 1 finger is bare of loops. That's the right ring finger. The ring finger is always going to be the getter, the finger that goes and gets a loop from the other hand. This is going to be kind of similar to making a pigtail braid in that the outer loop, which is on my index finger on one hand and the index finger of the other hand, 2, those are the outer loops going to the outer sides of the braid. The outer loop is going to come into the center of the braid on one side, and then the outer loop on the other side is going to come into the center of the braid, and that keeps repeating just as in the way most people do pigtail braid. However, with loop braiding, it's all about through. There's not going to be any over or under. My operator finger, the active finger, is going to go through the first loop, that's the lowest loop of the other hand, through the next loop of the other hand, and then it is going to rise up and go over the outer loop, the upper and outer loop. It's going to go over it and grab, let's see if I can show this, it's going to grab downwardly on the top part of that loop, the top shank, and it's just going to take, let's see if I can show this better in the camera, it's just going to take that top shank of the loop through the loops it just went through. It's bringing it back. I haven't yet let go, but I will. This is my next step. I'm going to let go of this loop with this index finger that it was on, and the loop's going to transfer over. when I do that, you won't see this, but it's really important to know, the loop that's coming off this index finger is actually going to get a turn because of the way I took it from above the loop. The loop is going to get a turn as it comes onto my ring finger, and the loop the part of the loop that used to be on top on this finger is now going to be on the bottom. It's going to be on the underside of its new finger. Here it comes. I'm going to let go with my index finger. It's going to come through. Usually I wouldn't do that so baggily. It's now on the ring finger of the right hand. I've just made my first loop transfer, and I'm going to tighten my loops. You do that after every time you take a loop. You tighten the loops so that it'll make a nice braid up there at what's called the fell of the braid, the base of the braid, where the braid will form. I tighten by opening my loops all the way out, not very hard. I'm pulling fairly lightly, but all the way out so they make a, I don't know if this shows, here I have to bring them down, and now it's not in a straight line. I'm opening it all the way so basically they'll form a straight line from hand to hand, and I do that a couple times. I kind of rock it. That will make a nice, in weaving that's called beating the fell. It will sock the pattern up in a very pleasing way. I'm not pulling hard. I don't have to pull hard to do that. Okay, now I'm almost ready to do the equivalent move on the other side, except I need to use my ring finger. The next loop has to come from the right. Over here it's going to be this purple one. It has to come from the right and end up on this ring finger, and so I have to clear that ring finger of loops. I'm going to shift and shift those two loops, shift them up, so my ring finger is available. Normally I would actually have done that before I tightened. I wanted to show you the tightening move, but okay, now I'm ready to do the equivalent, the same move on the left side. I'm going to go take my bare ring finger with no loops. I'm going to go through the first loop, through the second loop. Let's shift that over a little bit so it can show. I'm going through the I'm trying to see this in the camera as I'm doing it. Through the first loop, through the second loop, up and over the top of the last loop, the outer and upper loop, and I'm going to grab downwardly, grab the upper shank of that loop and bring it through, letting go with the hand that it was on. And now I automatically started doing this because that's what you do. You move the loops that are left behind, you move them up so that now that finger will be free. Now I tighten. Oh, I don't know if you can see this in the camera, all the way, I'm rocking that tightening move all the way out to the side, gently, but completely out to the side, and a couple times. That helps, especially later, it'll help the braid look its best. Okay, now my right hand is ready, and let's see if it shows in the camera. It's ready to go. The ring finger is free of loops. The other hand, the way I hold my hands, this is actually kind of important. Oops, let me get that loop back. When you drop a loop, don't panic. You can reach over, I'm socking these loops back. You can reach over with the other hand is actually the best way to usually get it. And pick it up and try and put it back, well, for sure try and put it back on the same finger that it was on. It's also really good to check along the loop all the way to the fell of the braid and make sure it didn't get some kind of weird twist when you picked it up. It's better if it, none of these loops should have a twist except the very last loop that you took. So that last one, that one on the ring finger, that has that little half turn I mentioned. It has a half twist in it. None of the others should have a twist, so when you pick it up and put it back on, just check and untwist any twist you might have. Okay, I forget where I was. We're going to go, this is the ring finger with no loop. It's going to go get a loop. And it's going to go through the first two loops, up and over the outer loop, the last one. And bending down, my hand turns kind of down when I do this. I'm going to pull it through. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Okay, now I'm going to shift to free up that ring finger and tighten. Nice rock. 1, 2. I'm not sure that shows in the camera. What I wanted to say before I dropped my loop was that for doing these braids, it's much easier if you do not keep your fingers close together with the loops touching each other, because then it's very hard to go through those loops. And it's also much easier. You might notice that I palms face each other braiding. You do not, because I've seen what happens when people learn to do this way. You do not want to braid with your palms facing up. It will slow you down so badly later. Your palms pretty much face each other. I stagger my loops a bit. I stagger them. See, you can kind of see on this hand if the focus is okay, that the lowest loop is kind of projected out, and the second loop there on this finger is kind of halfway, and the top loop on the first finger is back a little. The hands are, maybe I can show it better on this hand. It's further from the camera. They're kind of cocked in that position. That way you can go through them very easily. So I'm going through. See, I'm tunneling through them. I don't really have to weave. If my palms were facing up, I would have to go weave down, weave up, turn over, and it's too much movement. And later when you're using more loops, it just takes too long. You want to kind of tunnel through the loops. So through, I'm just tunneling and kind of feeling that I'm through it. I don't want to miss a loop. And then over the top, this hand, the left hand, now is turning downward a bit to fish this top shank and pull it through, and I'm letting go. Shift, bringing up that ring finger. Now I'm going to tighten. 1, 2. Okay, I'll try and go slightly faster. Right hand is going to go through, over, and grab, shift, tighten, nice and easy, not pulling hard, but a couple times out all the way to the sides. This finger's going to go through, over, grab, let go, shift, tighten, rock it. Through, over and grab, shift, tighten, a couple times. Got your ring finger ready, it has no loop on it. Through, over, shift, tighten, 1, 2. The ring finger is empty of loops, bare of loops. Through, over, and grab, shift, tighten. Oops, okay. Through, over and grab. You see my hand turns a bit downward when I'm grabbing it, taking it, shift, but in general, they're facing each other. Tighten. Right hand, ring finger, no loop on it. If there were a loop on it, you would end up with, after you did your transfer, you'd look down and you'd have 2 loops on your ring finger, and then just fix it, just move them up. Okay, through. This is very awkward. I'm doing this around the camera, so I hope I'm not conveying some bad posture ideas to people. But anyway, through, over and grab, shift, tighten. This type of braiding, well, it's finger-held loop braiding. This method where the lower finger goes through the loops of the other hand and takes a loop is called either a V-fell, the V-fell loop braiding method, or method 2. Noemi Spicer calls it the V-fell method, and Masako Kinoshita calls it method 2.